Hello, everybody, and welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today, it's Tuesday, the 18th of June, 2024. My name is CareyHolzman, and our shout out and thank you to our friends at Acronis. If you're not backing up your data, then nobody is. So if you don't know how to do it, or you're concerned that it's overly complex, Acronis makes it very easy, very affordable, and we have walkthrough videos here on the channel with our friend McGowden from Acronis, from everything from downloading the software, installing it, and giving us an example on how to use it so that you can at least have a copy of important data that a lot of people still to this day don't do. Data recovery is very expensive. You can be your own data recovery at a fraction of the time and a fraction of the price of data recovery services. And Acronis has a free trial, so you can make your backup. Recoveries are always free with Acronis, so even if you don't buy the software for any reason, you can still recover your backed up data anytime in the future. However, anything new or changes you've made since then, since your backup, you'll still lose that, but it's better than losing everything. In the meantime, password management's another issue I deal with all the time with what's my login to this website, what's my password. I use RoboForm for that. It's a password manager and a secure password generator, and you can install it on as many devices as you want for your account. So you want to put it on your laptop, your living room PC, your bedroom PC, your smartphone, your tablet. You can install it on as many devices. There's no limit for your individual account. And it's all secured. It's never been breached. It's never caused a computer crash from a bad update. It's probably one of the original, if not the original, password manager software. I wouldn't recommend the products if I don't use them myself. And if also the manufacturers have to offer you guys a discount. So even though I think they're a great bargain at MSRP, you get 30% off for new RoboForm customers, 30% off for any customers buying Acronis. And then, of course, our friends at VIP CDK Deals, they're where I go to buy my Windows 10, Windows 11, and Microsoft Office product keys. Everything is guaranteed. If you have any issues or concerns, reach out to these companies. They will respond to you and address whatever your concerns are. If you still have any concerns after that, reach out to me directly. These are products I stand behind 100%. Find me another content creator that does that with their quote-unquote sponsors. These aren't a traditional sponsor in the sense that I'm being told what to say, when to say it, or how to say it. Everything I do here is live, unscripted, and unrehearsed, and this is how I truly feel. It's not a money grab for me. If they don't offer you guys a discount, and they say, we'll give you the extra money instead of giving it to your viewers, I tell them no. So you can believe it or don't believe it. That's just how it is. We really appreciate having quality companies such as Acronis and RoboForm and VIP CDK Deals support us here so that we don't have to be one of those typical YouTube tech channels that makes commercials. I don't want to do that. If I like a product, it's because I like it. It's because I would use it in my real, genuine PC repair business. That's what I do. I've been doing it for over 30 years in corporate America for consumers and being self-employed. And I have nothing to gain and nothing to lose by being honest. Essentially, this YouTube channel is an extension of my business, and you are all an extension of being a customer. So I want you to think of the motivation that I have is I want to stay in business, and that sometimes means not servicing certain customers. So not all customers are good customers. We've had this discussion before. Customers that try to take advantage, customers that want everything for nothing, I can take them or leave them. But when I have a good customer, someone who appreciates the value of my time, isn't trying to nickel and dime me, I'm not nickel and diming them back. They appreciate the quality of my work. They refer me when possible. These are good customers. These are people that keep me in business. Most customers are just customers. I don't know which one you are, and you might be just customers for some things, and you might be good customers for other things. So there might be a restaurant that you eat at often, and you tip higher than you normally would because you're a good customer there. And then you might go somewhere else where you want to nickel and dime the people you're doing business with, and maybe because you feel like they're nickel and diming you and they've got it coming. And that's fully understandable. So because I'm not a nickel and dime guy, I'm not trying to throw a bunch of add-ons and unexpected surprise fees. I do what I say I'm going to do. I do it when I say I'm going to do it. It gets done when I say it's going to get done, and it's going to be in the price I say it's going to cost. Anything beyond that is on me. I set the expectations. So if I don't meet the customer's expectations, it's my fault because I'm the one who set them. If the customer does not agree to the expectations and we can't work out that difference, I prefer to not do the work than have an upset customer. As a result, my business isn't as financially successful as others who just grab the money. I just saw something in the news the other day about it was today, a local person called a local repair shop and claimed that they were afraid their computer had a virus or malware. And they said, we'll send somebody out. And they said, great. And then they called back 10 minutes later and said, you know what, just cancel the call. And they said, okay, that's a $185 fee. They were like, what are you talking about? And they're like, there's a $65 travel fee for gas and time. And there's a $120 cancellation fee because you didn't give us 24 hours notice. She's like, I didn't give you 24 hours notice because I called you 10 minutes ago and you were going to send somebody out today. I'm not paying your fee. And then they immediately sent her to collections, like a collection agency within days, not a month. I mean, if you want to go out of business and treat your customers like this, you're never going to have any repeat customers. So they contacted the news consumer advocacy person or group there for the local ABC News affiliate here in Phoenix. And they just published that story today. Shame on them. What a terrible way to run a business. But at the same time, there are terrible ways to be a customer. So now, if I was that business and I was going to send somebody out to a brand new client, I'd take a non-refundable deposit. Say, okay, I need $50 on a credit card before we're sending anybody out. And, you know, if this is a same-day service, I'm coming to you, I'm getting in the Phoenix traffic, I'm sitting in the car, I'm the one doing all the work. You're just sitting at home like you're having a butler come and service you. You need to pay for that. Now, if it's same-day service, in theory, it should cost even more money because it's not like computer shops are sitting around with nothing to do. To free somebody up to send them out there today, right now, is going to cost extra. So what ends up happening in my experience are the customers, they panic, they call for service, they might Google something, they don't know anything about the shop they're calling, they're just freaking out. They go, I need somebody over here. Rather than saving money and taking it into a place, they want them, you know, to have in-home service. And for some things like plumbing or electrical work, you know, things like that, of course, you have to have in-home service. But if you can physically take the device to them, it would cost you a lot less and you get much faster service. But you're paying for your own gas, and you know, if you get in an accident on the way or a flat tire or a ticket, that's on you. So they take all that risk. Anyway, so what customers do, and I've seen this quite a bit, is they freak out because something's not right. They panic. They make the appointment. Okay, someone's going to come take care of this, right? And then either they're talking to somebody or they're clicking around something, and now that they're calmer, they figure it out on their own. Then they call back and they want to cancel the appointment they just made in all that panic. There should be a fee for that. You still took up their time. You wasted their time. Unless you're a regular customer, that would be understandable. But a brand new customer, that's why that company really should have taken some kind of minimal deposit that you say, this is not refundable for same-day service. If you cancel this, we're at the very minimum, we're keeping this deposit. You know, if it's 24 hours notice or something, then it would be fully refundable. That's how I would do it with a new customer like that, because customers are doing this more and more than I've ever seen before. The abuse and the disrespect the customers have for the cost of running a business and the value of a business's time talking to you on the phone when you've never paid them a penny, scheduling an appointment, putting that on their schedule, getting a tech ready with all the tools they need to get out there, put them on a schedule, and then you undo all that, just all that labor that employee, that scheduler had to do. Who's paying for that? So a business needs to figure that process out without punishing the customer. It's got to be without punishing the business too. There's got to be a meeting in the middle, especially for same-day service. And again, if it's a regular good customer that you've serviced numerous times before, you're familiar with them, different rules apply because customer versus good customer. So bear that in mind when you're a customer to any business and you're expecting a certain level of service. Some people think that all customers should be treated the same. Wouldn't that be a great world to live in? But the reality is, if you buy a cheap car, like a Hyundai, you are not going to get the same kind of service you get at Mercedes or BMW. And that's not going to give you the same kind of service you're going to get from, even more expensive, more exclusive cars. The service has to get paid for by somebody. So if you're expecting, hey, I don't care if this thing costs me $1, it has a warranty and I expect you to honor it, good luck in that fight, because they might honor it, they might not. There's not a lot of profit in it for them. Any sort of warranty work they do on a low profit or even something that might have lost money on to get you to buy it, they don't care if you come back or not. They really don't care. And you should expect that. Like if you're just buying the cheapest of the cheap, you likely aren't going to sue them if they don't honor the warranty, because you wouldn't have had the money to sue them. Otherwise, you wouldn't have bought anything that cheap. It depends what it is. But I'm just trying to say you should be realistic that when people allow for the seller to make a profit, then there's a more reasonable expectation of them making sure you're a happy customer. But if you're shopping at Dollar General, one of these dollar stores, they don't care. They don't care. There's not enough profit in it. The amount you're spending is irrelevant. There's many more customers just like you that won't cause a problem. And they'd rather you just left than try and make you happy. They would rather you be upset and don't come back again, because you're not worth tolerating at those low prices. There's not enough money in it to justify it. And if you're wondering why that happens, it's because somebody has to pay people to service you when you're expecting free service. And when you're expecting free service on something really super inexpensive, or again, could have been a loss leader, I think you're just going to lead a life of disappointment, because it's not financially feasible in most cases, nor is there motivation on behalf of the seller, unless you're a regular good customer that spends regularly. You're just shopping there 1 or 2 times and you're buying the cheapest things of whatever category you could find. And then you're difficult to please on top of that. Just leave and don't come back. And they don't care if you're upset. Just get out. And you have to understand, they have a business to run, and they're not running it for you. There's an exchange, a reciprocation. They're willing to make less on this, and you're willing to accept less with regards to customer service. Now, there are always exceptions, but I would consider this the norm, because if you gave every customer the same level of service, regardless of how much they spent, or rather how much profit you made, you wouldn't have a business very long. Then you wouldn't have any customers. So it's really common sense. And I think the only people who think this way have never run a business. They don't really understand. They've oversimplified how businesses work. And if they ever ran a business, I'm sure the reality of the situation would slap them in the face. It's not about what you want to do. It's about what you can do without self-destructing, right? And customers don't care if you go out of business. And good customers do, but regular customers don't care. So I've had many customers offer to put me out of business. In other words, they'll offer me pennies on the dollar for something I just built with no consideration of my time, labor, or quality of workmanship or the quality of the parts. They just want a good deal. And the more I lose, the better deal they get. And if I lose enough that I can't operate my business anymore, they won't miss me. They don't care. But if it's a good customer, somebody who keeps coming back, somebody who refers me, I'm willing to make less on that customer, or even take a loss from time to time, because we'll call it the cost of advertising. Keep the customer happy, keep them coming back. That's fully sustainable. So just bear that in mind so that you don't end up being an upset buyer. Remember, there are terrible sellers out there, like that computer company I just talked about, and there are terrible customers out there. I don't know which one you are, but I can tell you, bad customers probably think I have a bad company. And that's the way it should be, because I don't want any bad customers. That doesn't upset me. They're not punishing me by saying I'm never coming here again. Good. Please don't. You're costing me money and wasting my time. So just to give you a little behind the scenes look of, if you've never run a business before, and it doesn't matter what the business is. It could be a restaurant, it could be a service, it could be a product. If you're not making a profit in it, or not enough profit where you're getting a lot of customer calls for help that is taking up all of the profit you're making and actually costing you money, you have to either get out of business, change the business model, or raise your prices. And any of those three things you do may put you out of business anyway. All right, welcome in once again. Thank you to David Graham with that $2 super chat. He says he's enjoying the cooking videos. Well, I guess they're pasta sauce review videos over on the Cooking with Carey channel. And we'll be sure and add a link to that in the video notes. Thank you, David, for the $2 super chat. There's our friend Buster joining us from Scotland, as always. Good to see you, Buster. Mara and I say hello and give you a virtual hug. He says, good evening, Carey, Mara, and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland. The temperature in Edinburgh is 54 degrees Fahrenheit, 12 degrees Celsius. Oh, that sounds a little nippy, but very appealing when it's 100 and actually today it should only get to 103, I think. It's going to be our peak. We'll be back up in the 100 and, well, triple digits by the end of the week. I don't want to think about it. Peter says, I can only stay for a few minutes as my sister is not well. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Buster. I hope that, I hope it's nothing serious. I hope she feels better soon. He also contributed 10 pounds there. Thank you for your contributions, as always, Buster, and renewing your membership. Now he's a member for 25 months. He was a member before there were members. It's true. And we can't thank him enough for all the help with Studio C. Jose Lopez with a $1 super chat. Thank you, Jose. Now, today, I have something new to review in the mini PC space. I get a little bored reviewing the same manufacturers over and over and over, especially when they're repurposing what could be the same exact shell. So from the outside, the machines look identical, and it's the insides that are different. There's not, it gets a little, I don't know, for me, it's like, oh, more of the same. Okay, it's the same thing, but they've enhanced it a little bit, you know. So when we can get a brand new manufacturer we've never heard of before, and in this case, that's what we have today. I don't know if they're good or they're bad. I've never heard of Reatan. I guess they've been around. Just because I haven't heard of them doesn't mean they haven't been around. It's just, for whatever reason, never crossed paths. So Reatan reached out and they asked us if we would be interested in reviewing their new flagship mini PC. And thanks to Mara for all this, by the way, because she's handling all of these negotiations in the background and the part of the YouTube administration. A lot of work. Thumbnails, video titles, tags, keywords, descriptions, links, and then, of course, working with potential sponsors. And in this case, not a sponsorship. What this is if we send you the PC, will you review it? And then Mara explains to them how we do this. They don't pay us any money. They don't tell us what we can say or can't say. They can't tell us when we have to post the video, although we might voluntarily agree if it's a range of a couple of weeks. If they want me to make a commercial, it will be designated as a commercial, not as a review. It'll be very expensive, so expensive that they probably won't want us to do it because that's not what we really want to do. And so far, no company's ever taken us up on that, by the way. And they won't get any heads up about the review because we do these live and unscripted. And if they agree to those terms, if you really believe in your product, you should be fine with it. So they sent it to us the other day, and I fired it up and went ahead and did the long the things that take a long time, like the Windows updates. I did a malware byte scan, and I did the crystal disk mark test. This unit appears to be configured slightly differently. There's not too many reviews of this I could find on YouTube, and they appear to be from about 6 months ago or longer. And they also appear to have changed some of the internal components, and the price is cheaper now than it was 6 months ago. And the components, I think, are either the same or better, but not worse. And that's all I know about it. I can tell you that it went through a proper out-of-box experience when I took it out of the box. I went through the Windows setup process. I did not have to bypass NRO. It, you know what I'm talking about, where it forces you to log in online. I didn't have to do that. And then once I finished the Windows setup, I realized why, and it was still running Windows 11 Pro 22H2, which shows it was installed mid-March of 2024, which is 6 months after 23H2 came out. And we've got 24H2 coming out probably in the next 2 months, so I'm guessing. So if I had any issues with this, so far, just trying to get it prepped, no malware was found, and I'll show you that in Malwarebytes results. They were, on previous reviews, shipping this with a Gen 3 NVMe, even though it's a Gen 4 motherboard. But now it looks like they switched that out to a Gen 4 NVMe, which is good. We'll get to it. What else did I learn about it? The Adrenalin software, AMD Adrenalin, it looked like they installed the drivers, but not the app. So without the app, how do you know if there's any updates? So I went ahead and did all the Windows updates. It did offer me 23H2. I accepted the offer. And then I downloaded the AMD Adrenalin software. I ran Uncle Carey's Windows 10 optimizer and ran Crystal Disk Mark. And then shut it all down and put it back in the box as best I could to replicate exactly the way it came out of the box. But just for full disclosure, we're not being paid for the review. The unit was sent for free at no charge. However, there are no other stipulations or conditions. And I did go through a lot of the time-consuming stuff prior to the video, but have tried to save a lot of it for genuine reactions, such as opening it up, seeing what it's like inside, and what brand of stuff they're using. So let's take a look. The Reatan Alloy 9 is what this is called. And if we go to the Reatan website, we can read the specifications to see what we are working with here. Let me click on my window capture. There it is. So Reatan Alloy 9 Mini PC, AMD Ryzen 9 7940HS. It's got 32 gigs of RAM and a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD. It's a DDR5 RAM, 2 sticks of 16, a 1 terabyte NVMe drive, Windows 11 Pro, and Wi-Fi 6E. Got some pictures. All the ports here. Some other information. And if we scroll down, we've got the description, more about the interface. We've got two USB 3.2 Gen 2s. Actually, we've got two sets of two, 4 in the back, Type A ports, a 2.5 gig LAN jack, 2 HDMI 2.1 ports, 19 volt barrel jack power. Now up in the front, we have USB 4. These are power delivery. They will also power monitors up to 8K. Unfortunately, there's no USB Type A up front. It's all just two USB Type Cs. We've got the audio jack, which can be used for headphones, microphone, or a headset. We've got this reset hole, which is for resetting the BIOS. There's a hole over on the left side, but it doesn't have any designation. It might be for a dynamic microphone that maybe they didn't implement. This case is all metal, so I believe the top and the sides are all one piece of metal. Anytime you do that, just like with the Geecom A7 and A8, it's very difficult for the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth antenna to get through the metal case. So you might find that your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth range are going to be reduced because it's just not optimal to put those antennas inside of the metal case. Better that they were on the outside of the case, external antennas, or that the side the antennas were on, actually they're on more than one side, would not be metal, right? Because that's just shielding the signal. Now the Ryzen 9 7940HS CPU can run at 5.2 gigahertz. It's got 16 megs of L3 cache. It can run between 35 and 54 TDP. It's got 8 cores and 16 threads. Despite saying it's got strong wireless support using Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.3, that metal case isn't helping. I can tell you that with any Wi-Fi inside of a metal case. You really want external antennas. You'll find that like on many of the HP, Dell, and Lenovo mini PCs that are all metal sold to businesses. You'll often find they have, quite commonly, antennas on the outside for just that reason. Now you see Reatan makes a couple other less expensive, lower tier mini PCs that are plastic. So the Wi-Fi on these, even though it may not be 6E, may have a better range because of that. So just something to keep in mind. Anytime they're promoting something that's all metal and it's got Wi-Fi, you should expect the Wi-Fi range will be impacted by that. Now, how much that affects you in your environment, in your situation, I can't tell you, but just be aware of it. When we look at the Amazon site for this product, you'll see they're offering it at $709, but there's a $100 coupon, which brings that to $609. And I think you would be hard-pressed to build a machine for $600 that would be comparable in performance to this. I really do, because you're getting 32 gigs of DDR5, a 1 terabyte NVMe with a Ryzen 9. You're getting the case, the power supply, the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, the operating system. You would have to, if you were building a computer, a motherboard alone that would have the Wi-Fi and everything on it for a Ryzen 9 would probably set you back $200. Whether or not you'd be using a cooler or you'd be using a box cooler, you're getting the cooler included with this. These are probably all the same photos. And if you decide to buy this from Amazon, you have a 30-day return policy, so that if you don't like it for any reason, you can send it back. Okay, now I think with that out of the way, do our unboxing. Now, here's the box, nice and close up. Specs on the back. And off that sleeve. Right there, so you don't forget what I'm working. So I don't forget what I'm working on. Box doesn't really say anything at all on it. So I guess I better get a marker and write Reatan on it. If I ever lose that, I won't know what's in this box. It looked like this when I opened it up, only without everything on the floor. Let me try that one more time. Look like that. So we've got the standard documentation we normally get with these mini PCs from numerous manufacturers, and an owner's manual that probably isn't all that helpful in the sense that only the first 2 or 3 pages are English. The rest are other languages. So, well, it wouldn't matter. You know how I am with instructions, right? Got a little protective foam there. And then this comes wrapped up like this. If you ever see a reviewer reviewing almost anything and they're like doing an unboxing and the device is not wrapped in a bag, it's probably because they're not really opening it for the first time. Or they were sent a used unit, which is also possible. But here's the device. Now, this is a bit bigger. Remember when we did the A8 and I compared it to a grilled cheese sandwich? This is a bit bigger than that. We're looking at maybe an extra inch length and width-wise compared to the A8. A little bit larger. Of course, the ports are going to match exactly what we just saw in the photo. Venting. Venting. The bottom, we've got screws under the rubber feet to access RAM and storage and Wi-Fi. You really don't want to take it apart any further than that. And then it's very, very subtle on the front where it says Reatan. Don't have any RGB or any of that nonsense. Now, I can tell you, if you're buying a Ryzen 9 mini PC, and I don't care who makes it, you should expect it's going to put out some heat. That doesn't mean it's going to be loud, but I mean, even at idle, when I was setting this up, I could feel hot air coming out of the back of it, which I normally wouldn't notice. So the fact that I'm noticing it tells me, okay, we have a pretty high-end CPU in here if it's putting out that kind of heat at idle. It's nothing to worry about. It's not a problem, and it's not running hot. It's just if you buy a gasoline-powered muscle car, you're going to expect you're going to have an engine that probably runs hotter, gets less gas mileage. In other words, it's not as efficient with the fuel. And it probably has bigger brakes to stop the darn thing. So if you were to do any of those one things without the other two, it just doesn't make any sense because they all three kind of rely on each other. So in much the same way, if you're getting a high-end enthusiast level CPU like what this is in such a tiny little package, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be loud. That's too subjective. And depending on your sensitivity and the room it's in and what you think is loud. But when I say loud, like universally everybody would say that, no, it doesn't mean it's going to be loud. But it will generate some above average heat compared to a lower end chip that would cost you less, but it's also going to outperform it. So depending on where your priorities are and your values, set your expectations reasonably, and you shouldn't be disappointed. In the rest of the box, we have that foam, and then we've got this. I know this looks like a box. This is a piece of cardboard that sort of becomes the floor of the box. It's very strange the way they did that. And in the box, there is no VESA mount. In fact, there's no way to put a VESA mount on the bottom. There's no screws for it. So there's no hanging it behind a monitor or on the wall or whatever. We've got an HDMI cable. 2 spare rubber feet. Hey, that's nice. Standard PC power cable, not a laptop power cable, PC power cable. And our 19-volt power brick, which does not say Reatan on it. I'll fix that right now. Mention this, and I'll keep mentioning it. Just because this barrel plug will fit in other electronic devices you may own, you will likely destroy them if you plug the wrong adapter in. Same as this. If you plug the wrong adapter into that, you could destroy that. You can also destroy the adapter. So I think it's important for manufacturers to acknowledge that people have lots of these around their house here in America, and they're not made by the same company that makes the mini PCs. Just like the mini PCs don't make the AMD or Intel CPU, or the brand of SSD, or the brand of storage. They're all made by other companies. This is no different. So this has the name of a company on the back of it that ain't Reatan. Is that good English? Ain't? So you can get a label maker. I got a silver Sharpie, and I'm going to write Reatan. Doesn't have to look pretty. It's going to sit on the floor and no one's going to see it. But but if these items should get separated, so let's say, for example, I'm moving everything out of Studio B to Studio C, and I threw everything in a box and these get separated, how do I know this doesn't go to a B-Link or a Geekom or Minisform? How do I know? Well, now I'll know. I just wish the mini PC manufacturers would consider branding the power adapters to avoid a customer making that very common mistake. They go, I wonder if this is the right power adapter. It fits, it must be the right one. No. That is a Russian roulette with your electronics. And given that's $609 on Amazon, that's not a warranty issue. That's not a defect in workmanship or materials if you do that. That's on you. That's not a warranty issue. You screwed up. So this is my safety net. Hopefully these two items never become separated, but if they do, if I should just find this all by itself, I know exactly where it goes. Now, if I had multiple Reatans, I'd probably put Alloy 9 on that. But it's also possible many of the Reatans will use the exact same power adapter. Possible. So I will do that with the devices that aren't labeled. And again, if I want to get out the label maker and make it look pretty, the only problem with the label maker is they tend to fade over time and they peel up over time. So with a silver Sharpie, it's an indelible marker. It's might as well be painted on there now. So it's very difficult to remove that. Oldman55 wants to know the wattage. I'll tell you what, let me just bring a power adapter up and you can see for yourself here. The writing on it's very small. And in fact, when I display it here on the screen that I'm monitoring, I'll be able to read it better because it's amplifying it. So we're looking at a 2.5 amp, 6.19 volts, 6.3 amps, 119, so 120 watts, what it looks like. Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question there. And sounds like I'm having a delivery at this time. Let's give this power, keyboard and mouse. We'll fire it up, see what it looks like in the boot time. So again, by having no front port type A USBs, I've got to go to the back, plug in a keyboard and mouse, which is normally where you'd plug them in anyway, quite honestly. But there does not appear to be a hard drive LED, just a simple power LED. That's it. This is probably about as good as you can get right now on a mini PC with built-in graphics, you know, without going to something far more expensive with a mobile GPU in it, or going to a unit that has an external GPU, which you could do with the USB 4 right here. You could run that out to an external GPU if you wanted to. But this will play some AAA titles. It kind of depends how demanding you are as a gamer. It's not really sold as a gaming PC, but it's the same high-end AMD chip as the mini PCs that are promoted as gaming PCs. And it will perform exactly the same as all those other ones do using the same chip. I mean, that's kind of common sense, right? Nobody's getting any more out of it than somebody else, not by any margin of error that couldn't be explained away in just silicon differences. Now, by default, the BIOS is going to have this in what's called a balanced power mode. You can go in the BIOS and you can crank it up to performance mode. And what that's going to do is it's going to make your fan much more aggressive and louder, and it's going to give you about 3% more performance. I don't understand why anybody in the world would do that. If this can hit 5.2 gigahertz or whatever it was, let me put it this way. If you're walking down the street and you've got $100 in your pocket, and someone says, if you do all this work, I'll give you $3 more. So now you have $103. Is it worth it? I think it's psychological. I think people just want bigger numbers. They don't actually have a justification for them. Some do. Most do not. They're just doing it because they feel like they're getting more for their money, when in fact they're creating more heat, driving up the fan noise, And the actual performance difference is almost unnoticeable by a human being, other than using benchmarking software that you believe for some reason. That people are puzzling to me sometimes. The psychological behavior of people is frustrating and fascinating at the same time, that people allow benchmarking software to never lie, to never be manipulated, to always tell the truth, and to represent reality in some way. Well, it says it's faster, so it must be faster, is one of the dumbest reality justifications I've ever heard of. It's not reality, it's illusion. But you're allowed to do that if you want to. I would just hope you'd rise above and prioritize your experience in reality versus synthetic benchmarks and trusted software that's not been optimized to perform a certain way under certain circumstances. Don't get me started. Let's switch over to the HDMI input. And let me put myself in a corner up here. So turn this on. Where's my power button? Power button's located in a weird place, but I kind of like that because sometimes when I pick these units up when they're plugged in, which I have not plugged in, I accidentally hit the power button. This one I'm not going to do that on because the power button's offset. It's not in a corner or on top. It's right there, right? Like an inch and a half in from the edge. So let me grab my power and let's plug the adapter in. And here we go. There's a little light that comes on the power button. That's probably too faded for you to see it. We get the company's logo on the screen here on our BIOS post screen. Let me get rid of camera 1. It is completely silent. I'm not hearing any fan. I'm sure if I push it hard, I will. I fully expect that. That desktop actually took a little bit longer to fire up than I was expecting, and I can't help but wonder if maybe an update was finishing installing or something. But let me go full screen on my side here. And let's take a look at our system specifications. Okay, there's our Ryzen 9 7940HS with 780M graphics, currently running at 4 gigahertz. It'll turbo up from there if needed. 32 gigs of RAM as advertised. 29.8 is available because the built-in graphics are using some of our RAM. When you buy a graphics card, it has its own RAM on it. When your graphics card is built into the CPU, it borrows your system RAM. There's our Windows 11 Pro with 23H2. Remember, it came with 22H2 initially. So we did have those updates to do. A little bit about the company down here. And if we go to Device Manager, we go over here, we can take a look at, let's see what it says for disk drives. We have a Kingston SSD. About networking. Whoops. AX210 Wi-Fi from Intel. That's your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And our LAN is a Realtek Gaming 2.5 gig. Usually when it blinks like that, it's installing something. I don't know if there's a driver update that it occurred. I mentioned I put the AMD Adrenalin software on, the latest version. And that may be, I didn't give it enough time after it installed to do whatever it was updating. But we should have that latest version on there now. Yeah, it's happy. And let's see, let's make sure Windows is activated. Yes, Windows is activated. So everything looks legit on the Windows side. We did run Malwarebytes, and that scan, you know, before I did anything else, just the Windows updates. I did the full scan, and everything's clean, just the way it's supposed to be. And then I ran Crystal Disk Mark to see what the SSD performance was. So we're just a shade into Gen 4 territory. Now, my understanding is there's been a bad batch of Kingston drives that affected some of the other mini PCs we've looked at. My understanding is, and I don't know the model of this specific Kingston drive, but Kingston had a bad batch of drives regarding performance. I don't know if this is part of that. It's hard to know with Kingston because they make cheap stuff and then they make good stuff. But they make more cheap stuff than good stuff, and I can no longer tell you the good from the bad anymore. Kingston, in my opinion, should be rebranding the cheap stuff under a value name, even if they call it Kingston Value, something like that, so we can differentiate the better performing, higher end stuff that Kingston makes. But because it's just a guess, I can't tell what's cheap Kingston stuff and what's decent Kingston stuff. I have to suspect with these numbers, based on what I've seen before, there's something wrong with this Kingston drive. But again, I'm speculating here. These numbers seem too low. We've seen this before. I think on the Ace Magic line, they were impacted by this, and somebody else was impacted by this. And simply replacing it with the exact same model of Kingston drive made these numbers larger, significantly larger, like around 6,000. But I might be conflating things here. It's really hard for me to tell you for sure that's what's happening. But these are low numbers for Gen 4. Okay. Now, it's not going to make that big of a difference to most people. This is what we call chasing benchmarks. Most people would be very hard-pressed to justify or to even acknowledge they notice a difference. Your Windows boot up speed isn't going to change. Your program's loading is going to load in a difference of milliseconds that a human being would not be able to notice. You'd have to be a very demanding power user to actually notice a difference. And you might be, but most of you are not, okay? If you want to spend your money on something that only matters psychologically, it's a placebo for you, don't let me get in the way of you and your wallet. However, if you're a reasonable, practical person, this really doesn't matter that much to more than 90% of people. But that's your decision. I'm not here to judge you. If you want to spend the money because you think you need it, or maybe you really do, that's for you to decide. But for everyone else, you probably don't need it. I can tell you this because as a working technician and dealing with customers, they don't know. They just want it to feel fast. They don't care what a benchmark says. They don't even know what a benchmark means. Thank goodness, or my job would be 10 times harder dealing with that psychology. Now, what else can we talk about? Okay, Cordius Technology in the chat contributes $5. He says, absolutely, it's crazy instead of playing games that worried about benchmark. Well, that's the game they're playing. Back in the day, we played until you couldn't play, and then we upgraded. Yeah, and you know what? If the game was more difficult to play, it made you a better player. It improved your skill. You know, when they do IndyCar or pretty much any kind of professional race car driving, every car has to be built with the same size gas tank, with the same maximum amount of horsepower or cylinders and weight limits. So it's really the drivers. It's really about the drivers that determines who wins and loses the race, as well as the quality of the pit crew, because obviously you can have a great driver, and if the engine breaks down or the pit crew has made a mistake, well, the driver doesn't really get a chance to show off their skills. So that's why I appreciate Indy racing in particular, is it's really all about the pit crew and the driver. Everything else is equal. And in video games, it should be the same way. That's what I liked about the old school arcade back in the day when you stick a quarter in a machine. Everybody used the same controller at the same height. That was a different controller for pretty much every video game, at maybe a different height for every video game. Nobody was measuring frames per second or frequency. It was all an equal playing field for everyone. You didn't customize your controller. You didn't sit on a couch and play it on a TV. You stood up. You used whatever controller the game provided, and you adapted to the game. The game did not adapt to you. And so when people would compete against one another, it was a completely fair playing field for everyone. All right, let me go back over here to camera 1. And I think the next step will be we'll take the bottom of this off, let me, I'll tell you what, if you have any questions for me, go ahead and put it in the chat room right now. I'm going to just grab whatever package was left at the door to give you guys a minute to put your questions in. I'll address that when I come back here in just a second, and then we'll get about taking this apart and seeing what's inside of it. In the meantime, I can still keep talking to you while I walk over to the door. And let me know if you have any questions that I hopefully can answer. Oh, looks like I have another mini PC to review. Get a little nervous leaving stuff out at the front door where anybody walking by or driving by can see it and steal it. So I just feel a little better. Not that I've had that problem, but I don't want to. I like to keep my record at 0. What did they send us? And who is they? Oh. I didn't even know this was coming. A new minis for him. Wow. Okay. Well, we've got some future content that just arrived. Anyway, let's get back to Reatan. And let's take a look at what questions, if any, you guys have here that I can address before we move on. Ron, my friend Ron says, you know, they've remastered Quake 2. We should get Steve when he's in town and tear it up. Forget Quake 2. They've got the new Quake. No, sorry, it's the new Doom. What's it called? Let me do this. Let's go here. Let's go here. Let's go to YouTube. Yeah, Doom Dark Ages. That looks like it's potentially going to be really good. Oh, they want me to confirm my age because it's so violent. Okay. And then the other one that looks really good is the new Gears of War. So rather than playing an old game that's been modified, I'd rather play a new game. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about right there. But yeah, anyway, don't get me started on that. Too late. Let's see what else we have in the chat. Matt Olaf says, sorry, I missed you today. I'll look at your replay later. All good, Matt Olaf. Thanks for saying hello. Bill wants to know if I've heard anything about the Ace Magic Starship mini PC. No, they released a new graphics driver for it, but I haven't heard anything with regards to how to upgrade it yet. John Williams says it's nice to see the area code for tech support for Reatan is a local number. Oh, I didn't even notice that. Frank Jimmy says, I like the I/O configuration of the mini PC. I prefer one Ethernet port and more USB ports. Well, how many USB ports do you use, Frank? I'm just curious. Most people don't use more than 4, and this has 6. So it should be 2 more than you can need. Furthermore, you could always add a USB hub to it very easily and inexpensively. But just out of curiosity, how many USB ports are you using right now, and what are they plugged into? Oh, it was Quake 2, he says they remastered. I did, well, for me, if it was Unreal Tournament, that'd be a different story. All right. So YouTube yesterday, when we were doing our members only video, was having some issues. I'm hoping I'm not re-experiencing any of that today, but we had chat room issues and people's comments were being told they had an error, they were being grayed out. And then later on Twitter, YouTube, that's where they post any sort of communication, as far as I can tell. The only place I can get anything about YouTube is on Twitter. And they acknowledged that if anybody was having a problem in the chat and live videos, it was them. And they fixed it. It's like, thanks for letting me know 3 hours after my video. It's driving me crazy. Let's see. I wanted to try something here. It doesn't work. I saw that Mike's Unboxing Reviews channel was able to give away some gift membership, like 1 month memberships to people who weren't members to entice them to maybe want to join. And I don't know how he did it, but I Googled it because I don't seem to have that option. So I don't know. That's simply not enabled for me for some reason, or if I'm looking in the wrong place to offer it. But in any event, it's something I'm looking into just for people who, for whatever reason, are not members and have never been. Give them a little taste of it for 30 days. And it was told I had to do it during a live video, and it just occurred to me to try that now. And it's not offering it to me. Random Gear Gaming wants to know, what program do you recommend to fix a corrupted solid-state drive that was used for a boot drive in a laptop? I've never seen a corrupted solid-state drive before. So what I would do is I would wipe the SSD clean using diskpart, that's command, DOS command. I would erase the partition, set it up like new again, and then I would run H2 test W to write across the entire drive and then read it back to make sure nothing's actually wrong with the drive and that it's not failing. Then I would recover the data from my backup and be good to go. Peter says he's seen content creators give out gift memberships, and those content creators don't even have as many subscribers. Hit the $sign to the right of the message box, and if you're a paid member of the channel, the option should be available. Yes, but the option should be available to me as the creator, and I'm signed in as the creator, and I'm in YouTube Studio, and I'm hitting the $sign, and it's treating me as though I'm a viewer, asking me how I want to support myself. And there should be an option, as I understand from what I've read, that says that I can gift the subscriptions. I can give a super sticker or a super chat. But there's no gift membership option. Samuel Kowalski says it'd be nice to have a free 1 month membership to your channel. Well, it doesn't seem to be possible. That's the thing that's puzzling me. And I don't get to decide who gets it. YouTube decides it. So in other words, the way I saw Mike's unboxing do it, and then from what I read in my own research, is it appears that when the creator creates a gift membership, it automatically gives it out to somebody in chat who hasn't been a member before, who is very active in chat and has been active in chat in the past. Like, it's trying to determine who's the most dedicated or loyal or regular viewer that should be rewarded above others, which I think is a great system. And if YouTube's going to do all the legwork for me, then I can't pick friends and favorites. In other words, that YouTube is doing it squarely based on the dedication of the viewer. And if that's truly how it works, I'm good with it. So that also means, I'm not to blame if the system doesn't choose you. You're like, oh man, you gave away, 5 memberships and I wasn't selected. Why didn't you pick me? I don't do the picking. So that keeps me completely diplomatic in the process. But I don't know why it's not offered to me yet. I'll just have to keep an eye for it. And certainly if we can do that, we will. But I believe it only lets somebody get a free membership once on each channel based on those. And again, this is just what I interpreted, what I read. I don't know if what I read is accurate or that I understood it correctly. But anyway, it's just not there. So let's see. Other questions about the Reatan before we move forward? All right, so just seeing if I missed any other questions. Questions about the Reatan? Aaron Baker says, what's the best for gaming? Probably whatever you can afford. That'll be the best for you. I don't know that anybody can determine what the best chocolate bar is. I mean, the one you like that you can pay for, that's available for you to buy. Like, it doesn't do you any good to buy the best because somebody else said it was the best. There's no such thing in the world as the best. It's all up to each individual's value system to determine that. You have to tell me what you think is the best for what you believe to be superior, what your priorities and values are, and you will stand alone. The next person will tell me what they think is best, and they will stand alone. And the next person will tell me what they think is best, and they will stand alone. If you want a world where you don't have to make choices, Apple Computer is always available. If you want a world where you make choices, you should be making those choices, not asking somebody else to do it. That's what Apple does for you. You would be happier as an Apple user if you don't want the burden of making choices. That's my opinion on that. It's not an insult. It's reality. That's the benefit of, and you're paying more for it, but Apple makes all these decisions for you. All right, now what I want to do is shut this down and open it up. I've got the overhead camera powered on, charged up, so we'll turn that on and switch over to it here in just a second. Let me go back to full screen on camera. No, wait. First, let me shut this down so I can't shut it down if I can't see it. Let's go full screen. And shut down. See what kind of shutdown time. Okay, looks like it's off. And then just for grins and giggles, because it seemed like that first boot took a little while, let me turn it right back on again. Right there. And let's see how long it takes to boot. I suspect it was doing something in an update process. It seemed like the desktop took a longer time to, oh, that's already much faster. Perfect. Okay, that's more along the line of what I was expecting. That's a very respectable boot time for sure. And again, that's with a quote unquote slow Gen 4 SSD. So you're not really going to see any difference. Most people won't. You're welcome to spend your money, but kind of pointless for most people. But it's your money. You might spend it on all kinds of pointless things, for all I know. You're allowed. All right, let's get this unplugged. And let me figure out, move some things here. And then let's bring the overhead camera down. All right, we'll try this out and see if this works. This on. Oh, just that. So, and let's switch over to our overhead camera. Hey, not bad, Carey. Must have done this before. All right, so here's our top-down view. We do have these rubber feet here, as I showed earlier, which you should be able to just pull those up. There's no sticky tape on the bottom of them, just little tabs that stick up. It's nice they give you a couple extras. I found a rubber foot on the floor of Studio B the other day, and I threw it away. Then I went to pick up my QNAP NAS that's been sitting on a shelf for months, put it on the table, and it started to wobble, and realized the rubber foot I threw away belonged to the QNAP, and I cannot find another one. I have to change out all 4. So stupid. I'll probably just remove the other 3 and not use the rubber feet. Now, underneath, you'll see we got just a standard, the camera will focus. On camera. Looks like a standard Phillips screwdriver here. Perhaps a number 1. Let's see. Yeah, it's definitely Phillips and number 1. That is correct. Now I can already see a problem potentially, and that is there's no lip or pull tab to separate the bottom from the case. Let's think about this for a minute. That means either using like a guitar pick or a spudging tool. If you stick a screwdriver or anything metal in there, you could gouge into the plastic, which I don't want to do on a brand new $600 machine. And it's, you know, panel gap on that is pretty tight. Once again, hoping this camera will focus for you guys. Very, very tight there. So then the question gets to be, how can you remove this? And I think the holes that where these screws went in, not the screws, the rubber feet that covered the screws, they have little holes here in the edges that the rubber feet snap into. And I think if I can get a small enough screwdriver or pick tool, I can stick it in that little hole and lift up. Now keep in mind on these mini PCs, almost universally, the antennas are going to be attached to the back. So don't just pull the back off with force. Those antenna wires for the Wi-Fi, they're pretty fragile and they're easily broken off. So be gentle when you're taking this off. I saw somebody used the little suction cups that I have. What did I do with my, oh, they're here, over here. So you've seen me use these little suction cups from Amazon when I'm putting CPUs in and out. And, you know, you get a little, I only need one, you know, but you get the whole container. And then you might be able to use something like this. You can get it to stick. I could see that being an issue. Oh, wow, it stuck pretty good there. Okay, I lifted it a little bit. Wow, it's on there tight. And you know, the problem when it's on there tight, you wet it. There it goes. So the problem when the bottom is on tight is you're more likely going to use force. And when you use don't use the force, because those little antennas right there will just break right off. And I mean break. Antennas are on the plastic side rather than the metal, for obvious reasons. And we don't really have much room. There's not a whole lot of slack here. So be very, very careful with that lid. Now inside, oh, look at this. We've got I should put a link to these suction cups in video notes. We've got a fan that's specifically for cooling the RAM and the SSD underneath here. That's really nice. This giant heatsink is just for the SSD. And our CPU fan is going to be on the other side. So if we want to upgrade anything, we're going to have to take this metal fan, this whole frame needs to come off. And I see 4 screws in each corner for this metal frame. I want to separate those screws out just in case they're a different length. They look, at a casual glance, they look to be the same as the others, but not like it's that much effort to set them aside. I don't know if I'm not taking these screws all the way out or if my screwdriver just isn't magnetized enough. There it goes. All right. I only got one out, the other. There. It's difficult to work this way, guys. Trying to keep it at an angle where you can see it. And that way I can't see it. Okay, now, likely there's some thermal tape under here and it's making it sticky. So maybe a little wiggle and a pull up very gently because we have a fan cable, power cable connected to this fan. And we don't want to rip that cable. There we go. And wow, that is another short cable. So I'm going to flip this up. And yeah, you can see our thermal tape for 2 NVMe drives. And we've got an NVMe slot here and here. This is the default configuration of how it's installed. Our Wi-Fi card right here where we can upgrade it. We can add an additional NVMe drive, Gen 4 there. You don't want to take this any further apart. You don't want to take the motherboard out. You most certainly do not want to separate the heatsink from the CPU. They're using a liquid metal which has to be applied in a very special way. And I saw one YouTube reviewer take out the screws in the middle. Never take out screws in the middle of the motherboard. That's holding the heatsink on to the CPU and it could be breaking the seal. The CPUs, if you had to take the motherboard out, will almost universally be in the far corners. I know people that are enthusiasts, they don't really know what they're doing. And they see the screws and they take them out and they try and take the board out and it doesn't come out because those screws hold the heatsink in. I think Reatan is going so far as to warn you, if you take the heatsink off, they're not going to honor any warranty on it because you've broken that special seal they have on the liquid metal. And Mini's forum says the same thing with regards, you are not going to improve the cooling on this. You will only make it worse. If you think you can do better, you will accept your consequences and it will not be a warranty issue. So you've been warned. Where did the other screw go? I heard it fall in here somewhere. All right, let's take a closer look at our RAM. If I can set this down without putting any stress on that cable. We've got a stick of see if this thing will focus. DDR5. Yeah, I'm having a hard time with this. Camera's not sure where it wants me to focus it. Since it's an overhead camera, I can't really see the screen very well. But regardless, this is a Kingston. So apparently we're all Kingstoned out here. If I tried zooming in on that. And makes it worse. Anyway, single-sided, and I cringe whenever I see anybody touch any of the gold connectors on RAM or SSDs or the bottom of a CPU. That's just cringeworthy. You can hold it on the edges. That's the best way to hold it. But definitely avoid this area with your fingerprints. The other RAM module, which, again, if we can focus, looks a little bit funky because it's got heatsink on it. They've just got some sticky thermal tape on there. And so if you do upgrade this RAM, you're going to want to move this to the lower DDR5 socket here. I don't think there's much more to look at. So RAM is upgradable, NVMe is upgradable, plus you have room for another NVMe, and the Wi-Fi is upgradable. There's nothing on the other side of this that's upgradable. And if you wanted to dust it out, you'd simply blow air through these holes and the holes in the back. You would not need to take this board out to do that, nor would I recommend it. And if you do take the board out, for your own sake, I hope you don't try and change the thermal compound. Liquid metal that is applied at the factory is not something you can improve upon. You can only make it worse. And if you don't believe me, try it. It's your money. Let me see. I don't know where the other screw went that I had that was holding this piece in. I heard it fall, and it's probably in here somewhere. And I want to be careful about moving this about because that fan cable, well, that easily comes off, but I don't want to take it off. Two Wi-Fi cables make this a bit delicate to open up because those cables are easily broken and the connectors are easily broken. So you must treat this with care or you're going to break it. So a lot of times people open their computers up, there's nothing wrong with them, thinking they can make them better, even though they have no real justification for it other than because they can. And then they end up breaking it. It no longer works, and then the company won't honor the warranty. And they completely just shot themselves in the foot for no good reason and spent money and time to do it. I hope you're not one of those people, and if you are, I hope you accept responsibility for your actions and think about how important it is, whatever the upgrade and money you're spending are on something that's under warranty. Hear that screw rattling around, I just can't see it somewhere. Now, the Wi-Fi antennas can be disconnected from the Wi-Fi card, and this power cable can be disconnected from this fan. I'm just feeling a bit lazy and don't want to do it. The best way probably for me to get the screw out would be to turn this unit upside down and kind of rattle, shake it around a little bit. It'll probably fall out of there. And I just need to think of a way to do that. Well, I just realized that whole thing's on a spring. So it's going to give it enough pressure to keep the heatsink onto the solid state drive, regardless of the height of the solid state drive. See if I can just do it like this. I hear it. This is why it's important to not only have a magnetized screwdriver, but to have one that's got a good, strong magnetic. There it is. The magnet on this is a bit weak. So, I mean, it's barely holding on to the screw. And so from time to time, it's great to recharge the magnetic properties of the screwdriver by using a tool like this, where you can demagnetize or magnetize. This part demagnetizes a screwdriver, and you'll just run this across a few times. And then depending on how long it is between how often you do that, you'll see the driver's much stronger now. And if I had done that before I began, if I just made that a habit to just run this through every time before I used it, likely dropping a screw it wouldn't happen. So that's on me. So again, I really wish we had more slack with these Wi-Fi wires. They are really, really short. Now I can put those screws back in, unless anybody's got any questions regarding the internals. Let me just wait a second. Peter with a €1 contribution. Thank you, Peter VZ, for the super chat contribution. So there's two fans, just to be clear. There is a dedicated CPU fan on the other side of the board, and that's going to blow primarily. Let me just set this back on here so I can show you. You're going to feel heat coming out of this heat sink right here. You see it's not just black, it's vents. Those are vents. And if this camera would focus, you could see them better. There they are. This is a metal vent. So if you were going to blow the dust out of this, you don't have to take the bottom off of it. See all these holes? In all these holes, you could use a duster, like I use these now, and it's USB rechargeable. And I don't want to blow away the screws, but essentially, you'd go here, you'd go here, and you'd go here and here. And this is the area you really want to focus on most importantly. And then because the dust you're blowing out of here may blow onto components over here, you would hit these last. And that's all you have to do. There should be no reason to open this up for dusting. So this fan is strictly to cool the RAM and the SSDs. That's all that's for. Most mini PCs have the CPU mounted at the bottom. Well, it could be at the bottom or the top. In this case, we've got the machine upside down. So the CPU is actually on the top and the air will blow out the top. Just in case your orientation's gotten mixed up with me working on it with the overhead camera. We're looking at the bottom of the PC now. And those vents I just showed you, those are at the top back of the PC. Okay, so with that, let me go ahead and put this back together. There's a bit of tension because this is on like a spring. So it's and it moves up and down, which I'm not accustomed to, but I'm very happy about that because that assures me it's going to add good pressure without adding too much pressure onto the SSDs to dissipate heat. Now, if you've got SSDs of two different heights, then the tall one is only going to get the tape and the shorter one won't. So you might have to keep that into consideration. these SSDs, or the one that's in here, isn't going to get that hot. But if you go with a higher performance, anytime you're adding higher performance, you're going to be adding more heat, and then cooling is going to be more important. This is probably a bit overkill for this machine's cooling, especially for the RAM. But given the internet's obsession with PC enthusiasts and heat that does not resemble or reflect any actual problems we see in the IT industry, I don't blame the company for putting an overkill cooling solution on this just to satisfy those people who don't really understand the engineering behind it, and they just want more. And MOAR, they want more cooling. And when it actually comes to getting any work done and using the computer, their time, it seems, is mostly spent on improving the computer, not actually using it for anything other than benchmarks and improvements. As far as I know, they don't really use it for anything other than basic web surfing and watching movies and playing some mostly simple games. That represents the majority of that loudest part of the enthusiast community in my anecdotal evidence. That's what I mostly see. People who actually use the computer for work and important tasks don't have that kind of time to spend on getting 3% more out of it. Generally speaking, it's just not a normal, justifiable, or even possible attitude to share. It's something home lab and enthusiasts do because they're bored or they just enjoy it for fun. But for regular viewers watching these videos, you need to understand the difference between what's practical and what's possible. And I think most people only care about what's practical. And you've got some extremists that really get into this stuff on a very high level for no good reason other than they want to see what's possible. And they've got the time and the money to do it. The rest of us, we can actually use our computers for the reason we purchased them, to get things done, whatever that might be. And if there's something wrong with the PC, then we can fix it. But if there's nothing wrong with it, you're likely just going to create something wrong with it. And if you're that level of hobbyist or enthusiast, they don't mind that as much as somebody who's actually trying to get something done. So obviously, my business doesn't run off hobbyists and enthusiasts who create their own problems. They're not the people that would hire me. So if I sound like I don't, like if I have a bad attitude about it, it's simply, it doesn't apply to me or my life in any way. And customers that I have would never do something like that. They wouldn't do it more than once after they paid me to fix it. And they don't want to spend money they don't have to spend to get performance they can't tell the difference of when they're using it. But that's my world. All right, so got it back together. Let's make sure I didn't break it. We can hook things back up again. We'll go here. And again, there's our vents on the top. And here, or vents for the CPU. That's really what's generating the bulk of the heat, is that CPU. And when you turn this on, you will feel hot air coming all the way out about that far. Now, we'll run Cinebench 23 on this just to see how loud it'll get and whether or not it will thermal throttle. So let's do that now. We'll get that all put back together. We'll turn this on. You see there's the light I was talking about. It's not all that bright. And let me flip back over to, where's my mouse? Camera 1. No, I don't want camera 1. I want the input of this little PC. I probably don't have my HDMI cable plugged all the way in, do I? Such a Carey move. All right. We didn't break it. So let's go to Cinebench R23. Oh, I need HW info too, don't I? Let me grab my flash drive and plug it in right quick and get that copied over so we can monitor temps and voltages. hate when it does this. There we go. Fine. Now let me get rid of that flash drive. We'll bring up hardware info and see where our temps are just while it's idle. Oops. Here. Why is it not letting me bring that down? Here. And then CPU. Okay, so that's our current temps. This is our minimum temps since we started this software. And then this will be our maximum right here on this aisle. And that's the row we're going to be looking at. So let me then bring up Cinebench R23. Clickety click. Accept the license agreement and start the test. And we'll see these temps jump up right away during this initial Cinebench warm-up process. Now, the warm-up process does take 10 minutes, and then the benchmark will run. We're doing the multi-core test first, that top test, and then we'll do the single-core test afterwards and see what our maximum temperature is. But usually, right in the first 45 seconds or minute, you're going to hit your peak temperatures on Cinebench R23. So if we do okay in the first minute, we're probably going to do okay on the rest of the test. If we scroll down here just to look at, wish we could get all the information on the screen here at once, but things like the amount of power it's drawing, again, with the minimums and maximum hit, and the same rows or aisles, and then frequencies that the CPU is hitting, which I think were up at the top. I don't know, if it were me, I would have put that information in here somewhere. Frequency, I'm going to guess that's got to be the CPU frequency because it is hitting that nearly 5.2. Can't see it from this far away. I can't read what that says. So our maximum temp there did get into the red momentarily. And it looks like that happened on, okay, I have to walk up to the screen. And the text is just too small from this distance from my old eyes. Oh, 88.3 is not terrible. And that looks like core 3 and 4 and 5 are pretty warm. Actually, They're all equally warm. Core 3 is the warmest, just by about 1 degree Celsius. 88.3 in the red. Interesting. Frequency limit. That's what I was looking at earlier. Huh. Saying thermal throttling, no on everything. So I'm guessing everything's running like it should. I still haven't really heard this fan crank up. Peter wants to know, can you still buy the CareyHolzman optimizer? Yes, if you look at the links below this video or below any video that I make, it should be there. Please do read the video description of my videos. Many of the questions you guys asked are already answered in there. And that's why I put them in there, because of their most frequently, commonly asked questions. See what else am I missing in the chat room here. Well, we're letting the test run. This is a good time for us to talk. Frank says he's using 5 USB ports. So what do you use the 5 USB ports for, Frank? I'm just curious. I mean, you probably have a keyboard, mouse, and monitor. Maybe a webcam. I just can't think of what a 5th one would be used for apart from maybe plugging a flash drive in. What am I missing? Because you say 6. This does have 6 on it, by the way. Mike's unboxing. Oh, there's Mike's. Mike's the Mubs. There he is, the Mubster. Is the fan actually audible? Yes, it is audible, but it sounds like, well, I'm hearing it crank up right now, and I can feel the heat hitting my hand. If I put on camera 1 here real quick, back to my OBS software for a moment, put on camera 1. I feel the heat coming out of it all the way back to here. So that's a good 2 feet away. Feels like a hairdryer on low. Is it audible? Part of the problem is I've got a loud air conditioner here, and it's over 100 degrees, as it will be for the next 3 months, every single day here in Phoenix. So the good news is Studio C's air conditioner is much quieter. It's hard to hear this fan over the air conditioner. But I can hear it, but I don't have to talk over it. I guess that's the best way. I don't, if the fan was louder, I would probably be talking loud. But yes, it's not 100% silent. It's not fanless. There are 2 fans in there, but it's very reasonable, especially considering the workload that we're putting under it. Doman 2000 said USB, extra hard drives, an HDMI capture stick. Loads, never enough USB ports. Yeah, but I can't imagine you use all that at the same time. Like, for me, just to keep things cleaner, if I'm using a USB capture stick, I don't want any of the same USB ports to be used that would impede the flow of data from the HDMI capture port. Not to mention it crowds the USB ports up. Frank Jimmy said he doesn't have a webcam. He has a wired headset and mic and a gamepad. Okay, sure. I mean, the headset and mics will plug in to a 3.5 millimeter, but if you bought a USB one for some reason, I could certainly see where you would need it for that. And it's just, what you're doing is you're doubling up on a port you've already got that you're not using, and then you're falling short on a port you need that you do want to use because you don't have the right. A lot of the headsets sold today are sold with either connection. They have a little adapter. And if you make that decision when purchasing to make sure you get one with the 3.5 millimeter, it's going to save you a USB port. Now, if you have a set of powered speakers that's getting power from the USB port, different story. If you're plugging in an external USB mechanical drive that runs off USB power. The problem I also have is the width of some of the USB plugs can often be too wide. So putting too much dependence on USB effectively slows down all your other USB devices. It crowds your desk. It's a cable management nightmare. And so I really ask people, if they really need it or they just want it. And that's okay to just want it. But You can always buy an external USB hub. I mean, your desk is already crowded with wires at that point. What's another little USB hub? And have as many USB ports as you want. You know, Amazon sells, for you folks that are like that, probably came out wrong. But what I mean to say is it's not common. Most people aren't using more than 4 USB ports. And I mean more than 90% of the people out there. So usually you've got something plugged in that doesn't need to be plugged in, or you've purchased something that has an alternate connection method, but you decided on USB. But it does slow. The more USB devices, all that bandwidth is being shared. So the more you're adding, the slower it's all going to go. If I go over to Amazon here, let me show you something that should just make your heart sing if you're in that school of thought, I guess is what I'm trying to say. USB hub. This is probably what you want right here. There you go. $16 USB 3 ports, and you can turn them each on and off with a button. So this way you can leave all your USB devices plugged in that you're not using and shut them off without having to unplug them, and thereby freeing up that bandwidth. As you can imagine, all of that's going to come out of one cable. So if you plug in a bunch of high-speed devices and you have them all activated, this is going to trickle through. If you shut down devices you aren't using, you're going to improve the data performance of everything plugged in here that's turned on. But yeah, Amazon sells these. Acasis makes them. We were thinking of getting one. This one says it has 17. We were thinking of getting one just for fun, but I don't really like to promote this. I think it's a very unhealthy and expensive habit to just put everything on USB. And I also believe there's a penalty for that with regards to performance in time. I think you're better off personally getting the right kind of device for USB to reduce any need of more than the average amount. There are always exceptions, and everybody's got different values and priorities. But the reason I ask is to determine if you're like an average user or if you're like one of the fewer than 10%. Something like this, you know, that I'm showcasing here, like with the 16 ports, I bet they don't sell a lot of these. Like in comparison to something like a Wi-Fi card, which your average user is going to want if their PC doesn't already have it. More people than ever before are relying on Wi-Fi, even on desktop computers. And, you know, may need a USB port for that, and that's critical, right? Storage devices generally get plugged and unplugged. You should not be leaving a USB storage device plugged in because it's subject to viruses. If your computer gets infected with ransomware, power spike, just failure from heat, because these USB devices, storage devices, typically don't have any cooling. They're not intended to be left plugged in 24/7. And then, of course, the reduced bandwidth as a result of sharing that bandwidth to an unused device. But, you know, to each their own. There's a price and a consequence, pros and cons. And, you know, that's for you to decide, as long as I want to make sure you understand what you're sacrificing for that. Let's go back over to see how we're doing here on the window capture. That's me, Carey. Let's turn that back off. Try that one more time. How are we doing on our test? Test is still running. And I have to go back to full screen because apparently when I click the mouse, I was using this mouse here when I was trying to go to Amazon and lost my focus on the window. So let's see how we're doing there. Walk up to the screen so I can read it. Okay, we've hit 91.3 so far on the CPU core. Still keeping it under 95. AMD on their 8000 series CPU thinks 95 is the normal operating temperature. I think they're crazy. But we only hit 90.9. No, we hit 91 exactly on core 3. And it was momentary. And that's fine, as long as it doesn't stay there. Like right now, it's running in the 40s. So it's 50 to 45 degrees cooler now than it was a few seconds ago. That's what the CPU is supposed to do. It's supposed to turbo up when needed. It's sort of like a car that has a lot of power, isn't meant to be driven with your foot on the floor. It's there to use that power in case of accident avoidance or a little burst now and then. It's not meant to be foot on the floor full time. You'd also likely have a hard time staying in control of that car, and it would probably overheat and you'd probably crash it. But regardless of all of that, the same sort of applies here with computers. The turbo is meant to just be momentary. And by momentary, it could be a few minutes, not necessarily a few seconds, but it shouldn't just be full time all the time. All right, let me go back over to the chat and see if you guys have any other questions for me. Doman says we want many USB ports for convenience. Well, to me, if it's slowing everything down and I have to wait longer to transfer files, to me, that's not convenient. To me, that's the opposite. But that's why I say that you might prefer the front of a coin and I might prefer the back of a coin. It's still the same coin, but how we choose to see it. You may see that coin worth picking up and I may see that coin worth stepping over. So all I'm trying to get people to, I'm not trying to change anybody's mind here. What I'm trying to do are for the viewers who are observing the questions and listening to the answers, I want them to understand diplomatically both sides so that they can decide for themselves if that applies to them. And if so, they can decide for themselves which side. Understand the pros and cons. There's not one size fits all type answers here. And that's, again, the benefit of the PC. Again, versus, say, Apple. Find Me in Hawaii says, would you get better performance using a USB Ethernet adapter on a TV versus Wi-Fi? Well, every TV is different. Every Wi-Fi is different. Every environment is different. The kind of router you have, the kind of TV you have, the kind of Wi-Fi you have, the structure of your building, the congestion of other Wi-Fi devices around you, how many devices you're connecting to your router, how old your router is, how far the router is from the TV. It might and it might not. It's most people are going to buy a TV and plug it into the Wi-Fi. Not plug it in, but hook it up to their Wi-Fi. Most people do not have the technical knowledge to plug in a USB to their television to know what's going to work with it or how to configure it. So generally speaking, 99% of the time would be my guess. Whatever's in the TV is all that's needed. There's really no performance benefit. Do you want to, play back 30 frame per second Netflix videos at 3 times their normal speed? Is like, I don't understand. You're just watching streaming video on your TV. What the heck does that have to do with performance? Are you having a problem you're trying to fix? And if so, please tell us what the problem is. In that case, we can offer you some solutions, but just putting a solution to a problem that doesn't exist that would have pretty much no benefit to most people is puzzling. It's hard to answer a question like that because I don't understand what motivates you to ask that. It implies to me that you're having some kind of a problem, like your TV doesn't pick up the Wi-Fi signal. And that's probably easier solved with a more up-to-date router. However, depending on what your building is made of, where the router is located compared to the TV, how many devices you're connecting to the router, how many other Wi-Fi radios are around you from, if you live in an apartment or a crowded neighborhood, all of these things play a part. All right, so our final test result here on the multi-core is finished with our score. Let's go ahead and start the single core, and it'll once again heat up that chip. We'll keep an eye on that. And again, it's going to run for 10 minutes to heat things up and then run the benchmark. And while it's doing that, we'll come back over here and see what other questions we can answer to bide our time in the meantime, which is perfect because we try and wrap this up about 2 hours on average on the live broadcasts, and we're just about 10 minutes shy of that. Timing-wise, it's worked out really well. Michael Brown says hello. Welcome in, Michael. Mike's Unboxing says, okay, as long as the fan doesn't have an annoying whine. No. No. The only annoying whine is coming from me. um, Jason Willis says he's a Dell XPS fanboy. They're great laptops. They used to be. They used to be. Now there's no more HDMI port. There's no more Type A USB ports. So I am boycotting Dell XPS. I think they're terrible now. On the other hand, I have learned to embrace the Galaxy Book 3. And the Galaxy Book 4 is out, but it's just about AI, and I don't have any use for that. Not at this point, anyway. It's about the same money for the Galaxy Book 3 as a similarly equipped XPS, but still has the HDMI port, still has a Type A USB port without having to go to an external dongle. I am so upset at Dell for that, and they've continued that for 2 or 3 years now. They've not changed that design. You get 2 USB Type-Cs, and then 1 USB Type-C for your charger. That's it. That's all you get. Nothing else. Maybe a micro SD card reader, which is pointless to me. That's it. No HDMI. Of course, there's no Ethernet because the laptop's too thin. The RAM is soldered on the board on the Dell XPSs now, but it is on the Galaxy Book 3s as well. So make sure you get as much RAM as you can afford because you'll never be able to upgrade it. But for the money, Galaxy Book 3 is way better. Breaks my heart to say it because I loved my Dell XPSs when they made them with consideration for creators. Now they're trying to mimic Mac, and it's just terrible. If I wanted a Mac, I'd have bought a MacBook. And now, of course, they've got the Qualcomm, the Snapdragon Elite, which is an entirely different processor from Intel and AMD. It's an ARM processor, meaning the Windows software has to be emulated onto it for it to work. Any software that was designed for Windows, what we call x86 or x64, has to be emulated with an ARM processor. And if something is written to be run on the ARM processor, it obviously runs better. If it has to be emulated, your performance goes down the toilet. So all of the hype about the new ARM processors for Windows, they're just, as I suspected, it falls short in performance of the Intel equivalent. Supposedly you get a better battery life. And supposedly this is just the first generation and it's going to get better. And applications like Adobe Premiere, for example, runs like a dog because it has to be emulated. When they optimize it for ARM processors and you download the ARM version of the software onto your ARM, well, I mean, it's just really overcomplicating things. Then supposedly it runs better. But since it doesn't exist yet, it's still more hyperbole. And if you wanted a basic laptop and you're just web browsing with it, probably the emulation of x86 isn't going to matter to you. But for the money, I think I'd just be better off getting a regular x86 processor, especially on a first generation product. And I knew it. I knew it. I knew the hype was overblown. Qualcomm does this all the time. All of their other ARM processors and processors for Windows have been dogs, just terrible waste of time. And I feel like this is just more of the same. I would like to be wrong, but I don't even think I'm going to review one. I don't see the point in it. It's just trying to keep up with Intel and AMD. It's not surpassing them. Not unless the software is specifically written for that ARM processor. And there are a few applications, and maybe it'll be widely adopted and everybody will jump on board, but I don't think so. Just stick with Intel or AMD. I think that's your best bet. Mike's Unboxing Reviews wants to know the temperature in the room. What is the temperature in this room? It's hot. The air conditioner hasn't shut off. It's just trying to keep up. The outside temperature right now is 98 degrees Fahrenheit, and I would estimate the inside temperature to be somewhere around 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm not sure what that works out to, 79 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. It's really struggling to keep it that cool. And remember, we have a very low humidity atmosphere, so the temperature is going to feel different. So if you mention 26C, 26C in Phoenix will feel much, much hotter to you than 26C in the UK. Without the humidity, it's a different gauge, or how it feels is different. The Greenie says, how many PCs do you have there on the selling block? Well, we will have the new Project Zero build available, the three Johnsbow cases, the smaller and larger with the monitor built in, and then the one with the curved screen. Still have one of the Be Quiets and the Hot Dog build that turned out to be a really nice machine with the Alzai case. And then we have two more of the NZXT 13500 builds using the live mixer boards. Of course, I've got the Starship PC, but I intend to keep that, the Spaceship PC, the Tube PC, and the Cube PC, and the Xenos PC, which are showpieces I intend to keep. I've got the 14900K Blackout with no RGB and an NZXT case. And I have the old streamer sitting right over here versus the new streamer. How many is that? That's just off the top of my head. I still have a Tower 300 to build. We still have to go through another Pure Base 600 build, another NZXT build, and a Musatex K2 case build. Just to name what's off the top of my head. Bill wants to know how Jimmy's doing in Studio 8. Jimmy's doing good. Thank you for asking. Kevin Broadstock says, good morning from Adelaide to South Australia. Good day. Luke Greenie said 95 degrees Fahrenheit and humid here in Vermont. It's hot all over, isn't it? Old Man 55 says, Reatan has been around for over 25 years. Well, there you go. For whatever reason, not a household name, but I'm very happy with the build quality, the look, the finish, the performance, the cooling, everything. To my own detriment, I've never heard of them before. I wish I had heard of them. If this is the quality of product they make, I wish I'd known about them earlier. Has anybody here ever heard of them before? It's probably just me. Let me go back and see how we're doing, speaking of that. Our test run. So nothing's changed with regards to maximum heat. And it's still warming up, and it has not started the benchmark yet, I don't believe. See, these little companies, when I say little, lesser known companies, are ones I really like to focus on this channel, because there could be some hidden gems out there in plain sight that we just weren't seeing. And while the bigger, more popular companies probably have a marketing budget, it's likely the smaller, lesser known companies are smaller and lesser known because they don't have a marketing budget. So I like to share equal time to showcase their products because, well, in the case of this Reatan, you may have a better deal here with regards to what you're getting value for the dollar. And with it being purchased from Amazon, you have that 30-day return period where, for any reason at all, just, I don't like the color, I don't like the way it looks, any reason at all, you can return it within 30 days. So there's no buyer's remorse here. You'll be able to buy it, evaluate it. And if you do, or if you have, please leave your actual experience, not somebody you know, not something you saw online. If you have an actual experience you would like to share with us, I would love for you to share it. But I don't need you sharing somebody else's experience. That's just hearsay and worthless to me. But I would love to hear any actual experience you have. Or for that matter, if you have any experience with mini PCs from any manufacturer, did you like it? Did you not like it? Are you still using it? How long has it lasted you? Are you still, how long have you been using it? Do you recommend it? Do you think you got a good deal? From people who have actually experienced it, I would love to share your experience. There's our friend Bill Leatherland joining us from the UK. Good evening, Bill. Good to see you, my friend. I hope you're doing well. Bill's been watching the channel for years. A shout out again to our friend Mike's Unboxing and Reviews. He's got a YouTube channel. He's been running that channel for years. Over 2,000 videos. Does many videos very similar to mine, including live, just like we're doing. If you enjoy my content, I think you'll enjoy his. Go and subscribe and check out his channel. Also, if you're in the UK and you're looking for somebody local, perhaps you want somebody to build you a PC, or I don't know if they'll do it, but it's certainly more practical for him to be able to help you in the UK than for me. And it looks like he does really good work, and he's been doing it for years and years and years. And that's what impresses me about people of any industry. It's not that they get started and they're enthusiastic. It's that 10 years later, they're still doing it, or 10 plus years later. That really shows enthusiasm and dedication. A lot of people, whether they're podcasting or content creators on YouTube or whatever, they start out with a bunch of energy, and then they get deflated over, maybe they don't get enough views, they don't make enough money, they run out of ideas, and they fade away. So for me, the cream rises to the top, and it only happens naturally through time for most of us. And it's something that the reason you do it isn't about the views or the money, in my opinion. It's because you love sharing your passion with an audience. And if it's a true passion, then you'll continue doing it 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road. If it's just a momentary fad that you went through, nothing wrong with that. I just don't want to invest myself in you and your channel when you're not going to be around and you're just going to fade out. But when I've only recently learned of Mike's Unboxing and Reviews, going back and looking how long he's been around, that's the first I've ever heard of him. And I'm looking at everything I've been missing. And I'm like, what a great resource. And what dedication. Somebody who's been doing something that long. And I don't care, like I said about myself, I could be as dumb as a box of rocks. But after doing this for 30 years, you got to give me credit for at least knowing something, right? Just through the sheer amount of repetition and scale of doing the same thing over and over and over again. No matter what, if you think of yourself as an intellectual, smart person, or as somebody who's a difficult learner, I guarantee through actual experience, years and years and years of experience, you may not be giving yourself enough credit for exactly how much you know. And it's really the only way to gain that level is to actually put the time in. So you don't find people like that around on YouTube too often. So a little treasure. Hey, there's our friend Mitch Morrison joining us. Welcome in, Mitch. Find me in Hawaii, now a member for 25 months. Right on. Thank you, Ken. Arliss Young says hello from the Florida swamp. All right, get the airboat out. Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How-To says, very kind of you, Carey, much appreciated. Been doing PC builds since 1995. Had experience in retail sales and business support roles for companies as big as the BBC here in the UK. I was curious about that. Oh, I get a lot of questions for you. We'll definitely have to bring Mike on and interrogate him. Have a little discussion and some exchange of perspective. Not only are our cultures different and our generations different, but I think our preferences will be different. And it doesn't mean anybody's right or wrong. It's just sharing your experience and your values without having to defend them, right? So doing that with a peer versus with some stranger online, well, that's something I enjoy very much, right? Strangers online, sometimes they don't communicate well. Sometimes they kind of come across authoritarian or as though they're trying to mark their territory and dominate. And they may not intend that. And so I can get quite defensive if I'm sensing that from an unknown person participating in chat. But when I can identify who you are and that you're a real person and that, you know, that changes the kind of responses I give because I understand the intent, regardless if it's communicated correctly or if I've interpreted it correctly. So you have nothing to worry about. I won't be attacking you, Mike, on Mike's Unboxing. I'm genuinely looking forward to talking with you and sharing ideas that you won't have to defend yourself on. Though I might question it and see if it makes any sense to me. But don't take it personally. It's just how I understand things. Like if you like something that I think is preposterous, I'm an honest person. I'll ask you to justify it. You don't have to, but I won't be insinuating that you're dumb or anything like that. I don't want you to worry. I know some people might get the impression that I can be quite aggressive in response to, but it depends who's asking in the question and whether or not I'm familiar with who they are. That makes a very, very big difference. There's just too many trolls online, and it's very hard to tell people's sincerity from people's inability to communicate effectively. And I tend to, if it's somebody I don't know and the question comes across as authoritarian, it's sort of like a student telling a teacher how to teach. It's quite offensive. But if I know who you are and I know you didn't mean it that way, it's a total different. I'm at a little bit of an unfair advantage in that regard because people feel like they know who I am because they get to watch me and hear me talk. I don't get to hear them talk, most of them. I don't get to see what they look like. I don't know if they're 12 years old or 80 years old. I don't know what kind of experience they have, if they're just hobbyists or if they've actually worked in the industry. And all of that gauges the weight with which what they're saying is interpreted by me. So we're going to have a good time. You don't need to worry. Luckily, I have met many of the friends here in blue. Certainly, we've had Mitch Morrison join us several times, and he keeps coming back for more. So what does that tell you? Let's see. All right, we're 10 minutes after 3, so I've gone a little over. Let me take a look. I wasn't paying attention. What was my final results? The test finished, and oh, we're fine. Yeah, cooling wise, it went through both tests. There's our scores on the CPU multi and single core test, if you want to compare those. And the system never really got loud. We could go in the BIOS and crank up the wattage a little bit and get 3% more power and 20% more noise. I think that's a waste of time. It's not worth it. Just leave it the way the factory set it for the best reliability and the best longevity, the longest lasting. If you're going to run it hard all the time, it's probably going to die earlier, just like everything else in life. Okay, final questions. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up for today. My thanks to the folks at Reatan for sending us. This is a really nice PC. It's a dark gray color. It's all metal on the. It looks to be one piece. This whole top and sides with the plastic bottom. I know any metal PC, just to reiterate, is going to impact the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth range. External antennas are preferred if it's an all-metal PC for that reason. That's also why the antennas are on the bottom. They're on the plastic, which is not a good location. Depending on what kind of router you have and how far you are from it and how congested and all the other variables, it may not be a problem. If it is, you can always plug a USB Wi-Fi card on there and just don't use the one inside of it. But I don't know realistically if that's really going to be a problem. Yes, you can do gaming on this. But if you want a gaming PC, this isn't really going to compare to a discrete graphics card. You could buy a discrete graphics card, put it in an enclosure, and plug it into one of the USB 4 ports up front. But you will spend twice as much as what this costs to do that to make it worth your while. So you're looking, either way, you're not really going to save any money. If anything, it probably costs you more money to do it that way than to just buy a desktop for gaming. If your gaming is light gaming, if you're playing older games, esports games, retro gaming, all of that's going to sail through this with no problem. If you want to play the latest AAA first-person shooter titles, depending on your settings, you may or may not find that satisfactory. Again, if you're looking for a very fast 0 to 60 time, you don't want to be looking for the cheapest car. And I think for what you're getting for the money at $609 for that much RAM, storage, performance, CPU, cooling, USB ports, the power, everything in the box, you'd be hard-pressed to build something like this anywhere close to that price. I challenge you. Include the cost of the operating system, the storage, the RAM, and build something equivalent to this on the desktop side. And let me know what your price is. This is already done. All your warranty is through one company, not through separate companies for each part. And again, if you purchase it from Amazon, you have that peace of mind where you can return it for any reason at no cost to you for the entire 30 days. Just make sure that you put everything back in the box. If you fail to return the HDMI cord or the power cord or the extra rubber feet, you're a thief. And while Amazon may not punish you for that, they also might, and they should. Because if they end up reselling it as a used item, and they're going to have to discount it based on what parts are missing, and they're going to have to discount it based on the fact it's returned. Because if they don't discount it, why would you buy it? If a returned one costs the same as a new one, just buy the new one. So Amazon's going to lose money on that. And then when people can't be bothered to even put the cardboard back in the box, so the thing gets all scratched up in shipping, and then they expect a full refund, you should return everything you purchased, everything, every single piece, including the sleeve, if you want every penny back. And even though Amazon has been very generous in that and quite forgiving, it's the people like me who are buying the used stuff that end up missing pieces that if I'd have known, I wouldn't have bought it. So when I'm purchasing anything returned from Amazon, I always make sure it's from Amazon warehouse. For just that reason, I can send it back with the same 30-day period, again, for any reason. And usually it's because somebody stole something. And they may not see it that way, but it's stealing. If you kept something and you got a refund and you did not return it with the refund, you stole it. So if you are considering the possibility of returning something to Amazon, please keep everything together until you make up your mind. And that way, you can rest easy at night knowing the next person who gets it isn't going to be shorted something. You should expect a full refund, and you haven't stolen anything. So, but like I said, I think Amazon's been way too liberal with that return policy. They're letting people return. People are swapping out completely different parts, putting it in the same box. How many fans have we unboxed that were returned that were not the fan? That somebody took their fan out of their computer, took the new fan, stuck their old fan in the box and sent it back, and Amazon didn't inspect it and gave them a refund. And not only that, listed it as a used item that we purchased, unboxed live, and said, this is a dusty 10-year-old fan in this brand new box that has no RGB. It's not what we paid for. It's not from the same manufacturer. Nothing about it is right. You know, sending that back, a fan is worth how much? And they spent how much in shipping it back and forth? At least 2 times to the original buyer and then back, and then to the new buyer and then back again, because somebody's a jerk. But Amazon should do a little bit more on that. My thanks again to everybody joining us in the chat, all of the members. Thank you for being members of the channel. Thank you for supporting us here so we don't have to become corporate meat puppets. I really don't want to do that. I'd rather not make videos at all. As a reminder, my Cooking with Carey channel, I'm doing a sort of reaction videos to different arrabbiata pasta sauces with penne pasta. And that's on the Cooking with Carey channel. It's been a while since I've done anything, a couple of years. And all of my dishes are very simple and plain because I'm an extraordinarily fussy eater who doesn't like his foods to touch. And I feel like there's not enough videos for people like me. So they're very simple. Check it out. Everybody has to eat. And they're all genuine reaction videos to trying some different arrabbiata sauces to my personal taste, to no other measure. And I'm not from Italy, and I don't know what I'm talking about other than this is what I like or don't like. It's just a fun experience to share. So if you think that might be appealing, go check out the Cooking with Carey channel. It's a very small channel. It's not monetized or anything. It's just me having some fun. And of course, thanks to Mara for all the help she's doing in the background there, the YouTube administration, the thumbnails, monitoring the chat room, handling communications and setting up things with sponsors and answering viewer emails. Thank you so much for all the hard work and time she's putting in. And of course, to our friends at Acronis, RoboForm, and VIP CDK deals, all of which sell a very good product that I really use in my business. And on top of that, give you guys a 30% discount just because you're my viewers. They support us here. We hope you support them back, or at least give them a shot. They all have free trials. Nobody's trying to rip anybody off. They want you to be happy. They want to make sure you're getting a good deal. And I want to make sure that I'm only endorsing real products that I use in my real business, and I'm not just cashing a check at your expense. So probably going to be a while before I can buy my Tesla with that attitude. That's okay. This is way more important in this community. Thank you so much for being a part of it. It's the most valuable thing on the whole channel is this amazing community where we support one another. And it's just unusual to find such a kind and supportive place on the internet in the modern day that we live in. And I will protect it with my life. So thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for all the super chat contributions and membership renewals. Let me check the email real quick just to see if I've missed anything. When somebody contributes, it's really important for me to say thank you for that. Our friend Frankie B sent a PayPal contribution. Frankie, thank you so, so much, as always. I think that covers us. And with the super chats, I should have a list of people. Let me just shout them out one more time. I might have missed some. So very quickly, a thank you to Peter VZ, Acordius Technology, Alan Lindos with $17.77. Thank you, Alan. Jose Lopez, Peter Lightcock, our friend Buster, of course, David Graham, and thank you for the membership renewals from Luke Greenia and Find Me in Hawaii. You guys rock. In the meantime, if you're looking for some other content, I mean, don't leave my video for it, but when I'm done, go check out Mike's unboxing reviews and how-to, and we should add a channel link, a link to his channel in the video notes below. I think he does a great job. And I think if you enjoy my content, well, you might like his just a little bit better. I kind of do. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Links for everything we discussed are in the video notes below the video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all very, very soon. I said that already. Bye for now.